clinician has with a patient in a face-to-face situation when the patient comes to the hospital clinic or to a large private clinic. This should be fairly familiar for you. So patient would call, the appointment is scheduled for the patient, and at the time of the appointment, the patient arrives and sits in the waiting room until they're taken to the back room and they visit with a nurse or a medical assistant who will collect some data about why they're there, what ails them, what their condition is. They'll make some notes. Then they'll pass the patient over to the physician. Maybe the patient stays in the one room and the physician will meet with the patient. And then depending on the diagnosis and the outcome, write a prescription, then check the patient out and perhaps schedule a new appointment for the patient. So this is a very familiar workflow in best practices around the world. Patient will arrive, visit with a nurse or a medical assistant, meet with the physician, schedule a new appointment, go pick up their medications and go home. In the context of the virtual world though, it's very difficult to achieve this situation because many telemedicine solutions don't provide the face-to-face context. So let's talk a little bit about that. The challenges of a typical telemedicine platform arrive from a series of deficiencies in typical telemedicine platforms. They typically don't integrate into the patient management, scheduling, or EMR systems. That has implications with regard to workflow and patient data. From a workflow point of view and a patient data point of view, that could result in double scheduling or double calendar management, as data can't flow from the clinic scheduling system into the calendar of the physician or the patient. There are often technology challenges with patients trying to download apps, can't find them, and also from a clinic point of view, manual sending of patient reminders for their virtual visit. I was interested in reading a statistic where the no-show rates for virtual visits are actually 80% higher than face-to-face visits. And so reminding of the patient frequently and in a timely fashion is important for their appearance in a telemedicine visit, but many technologies don't provide a way to facilitate that. They can't provide the pre-visit information and data collection. It's quite often available only in a single language or one or two languages, which is uncomfortable for the patient because the patient can't see what's going on until they get to face-to-face with the physician. Quite often there are security issues. Many solutions offer one link for all patients for all visits. You know, some solutions like, you know, the common video conferencing solutions are not really intended to be used as telemedicine solution or virtual visit solutions. If we go back to the pre-visit problem on the bottom right of the screen, that's driven by one visit, one provider. Patient can come in to a virtual visit, have the video conference with the physician, and it's done. That's a workflow problem. There's no reporting. There's no way to get analysis on workflow, patient wait times, patient satisfaction, and all number of analytic data that is typically used in optimizing workflow and optimizing patient satisfaction and, of course, optimizing patient outcomes. And that's all driven around the workflow. So what does that mean in terms of the workflow that we discussed previously? It really means that you can only enable two facets of your overall workflow. If this telemedicine solution that you're using, the typical telemedicine solution, has the ability to have a waiting room, then the patient can arrive in that waiting room. And quite often this is a shared waiting room with all the physicians, and you have to go through and find which patients you're actually wanting to meet with. Then they can meet with the physician, and that's it. So having seen this, we've put together the concept of 7 things you need when you're evaluating a telemedicine platform. And we firmly believe that these things are absolutely mandatory for you to optimize your workflow, productivity, patient satisfaction, and revenue when using virtual visit solutions. The platform must be integrated into your scheduling system, patient management system, and or your EMR. That's mandatory. Automatic notification of patients by text, SMS, or email, absolutely mandatory, has to happen multiple times prior to the visit. It needs to be available in the language that's preferred by the patient so they understand the process leading up to the conducting of the virtual visit. Quite often, there are workflow issues associated with the patient being disconnected from the visit. And so effectively managing when the patient gets disconnected, having them reconnect in a timely fashion or reschedule depending on what the physician requires is actually a very important productivity issue. So disconnect management is absolutely imperative. The workflow around the scheduling to follow up has to be managed by the entire platform, not just the virtual visit. Patient transfer between the nurse, the physician, the checkout person, whatever workflow is desired during a virtual visit is also mandatory from my point of view. And then of course the reporting to understand all the facets around the optimization of patient outcomes, revenue generation, and workflow associated with that. So Health Orchestrator Telemedicine is actually a platform that we've developed specifically to incorporate the end-to-end workflow around the virtual visit, not just the virtual visit itself. We do integration with patient management, scheduling, and EMR systems. There's one visit, one schedule, because we do that integration. So if you have an EMR system or scheduling system, the appointment is scheduled in there, it flows through to us, and then we manage all of the patient notifications. And for virtual visits, we notify up to 3 times, depending on how far in advance the appointment was scheduled. The last one is actually 15 minutes before the appointment, with a way for the patient to actually access the visit at that time. The patient can be transferred from one person to another in any direction. There's no preset or pre-configured workflow that's required for that. So if the physician wants to send the patient to a social worker, to a mental health worker, to a dietitian or a genetic counselor, immediately following their visit, they can do that, and that all can be managed within the one virtual visit for the patient. Multiple languages, of course, is essential. We have 11 languages currently available, so the patient can see the UI in their preferred language. Disconnect management, of course. Security, one link, one visit. No sharing of links between one patient and multiple visits or one patient and another. Detailed reporting that enables workflow. So what this does is actually create a holistic 360-degree view of the patient. It minimizes treatment delays, improves patient satisfaction, and drives revenue opportunities because of that efficiency that's generated. So with Health Orchestrated Telemedicine, when you're doing virtual visits, then what can be enabled in terms of a process? Well, the patient can call. You'll schedule the visit in your appointment scheduling system. That'll flow through to us automatically via an interface, and we'll notify the patient automatically. And then when the patient arrives in the waiting room, it can be a private waiting room, it can be a group waiting room, depending on the configuration that's specific for that particular physician, and there can be a variety of different configurations. The patient can do a pre-visit with a nurse, a medical assistant. In fact, they can do multiple pre-visits before they get to the physician if necessary. It can be transferred to the physician. The physician can then transfer the patient to checkout, if necessary, schedule a new appointment, and then when that new appointment is scheduled, the automated reminders can be generated until the patient arrives next time in the virtual waiting room. So just to quickly summarize, video conferencing is not equal to telemedicine virtual visits. There are, as we've just seen, a multitude of processes that have to be enabled in order to effectively provide an experience for your patients that is optimal. Now, we run in the cloud, and our platform runs on Microsoft Azure, and I believe, and one of the reasons we actually chose Azure is because of scalability. and because it provided a platform for us to grow internationally on. And so I think that the next speaker now is going to talk about the Microsoft Azure platform. Thank you again. I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them at the end of the session. Thank you.